It's unfortunate to admit, but controlling people are everywhere, and they can come into your life in any capacity. They could be your friend, your coworker, your boss, your parent, your partner, or your roommate. So let's talk about how to avoid and how to heal from these energy drainers. If you don't know me, my name is Haley, and I'm your realistic and balanced bestie, helping you build a stronger brain and body. If you've dealt with or are dealing with somebody in your life who's trying to control you, manipulate you, or just make your life less of your own life, then first of all, I'm so sorry. But second of all, let's talk about how to know that this person is trying to control you, how to heal from it, and how to actually rebuild trust with yourself, and all of the signs to look for in the future. Before we get into it, please make sure that you are subscribed to my channel down below, because that really is the best way to get my videos out to more people and for more people to see my face, which, come on. Also, be sure you're checking out the description below for a bunch of free resources for your fitness and mindset journey. Now, let's first dive into the 7 signs that somebody is controlling you. Number 1 is that they always insist on having things go exactly their way. And this is something that you might overlook in the beginning, and you might even be like, oh, must be an only child, or oh, maybe they're just a little bit selfish. But the truth is that this can be a huge sign that someone is controlling, especially if it's a reoccurring thing for them. So you can kind of test this by seeing if someone is only like this with you, or if they're like this about things in their own personal life as well. So for example, if someone is always dictating what you guys do, how you do it, where you go, what you do when you're hanging out, if someone is super anal about that, but when they're hanging out with other people or when they're just doing things on their own, they're really relaxed and they're not super controlling, for lack of a better word, about what happens in their day-to-day life, then this could be a little bit of a red flag. Now, of course, there are people who are just very anal and they want to control every single aspect of their life, and they do this with absolutely everyone in every single capacity. So that's a situation where it's like, okay, maybe this is just who they are as a person. But on the flip side, if you have somebody who is not really like that with anybody else or with anything else that they're doing in their life, but they're like that with you, this might be a really big sign that they're specifically trying to control you and trying to control every single aspect of your life and y'all's life together. Sign number 2 is that they refuse to accept blame in any situation. And this in general is just one of the biggest signs of a controlling or a manipulative person, and it starts really small. It starts with things like maybe they knocked over a cup and it spilled, and they're suddenly trying to convince you that it wasn't them. They couldn't have possibly done anything to knock that cup over. That was completely a fluke. There's no way that it was their fault. And you believe things early on because you're like, oh, okay, maybe I saw that wrong. Maybe I did it somehow. Maybe my elbow hit that cup. And you actually start to justify it because you're like, surely nobody would actually try to manipulate me over something this small. And then next thing you know, they are blatantly flipping situations on you and making it appear to be your fault, making you apologize, making you the bad guy, and you're just confused because you're like, wait a minute, that's not what happened. So you really want to pay attention to the situations that you're in, and pay attention to if you're ever being forced to apologize for something that's either not your fault or something where you apologize and then they don't apologize for what they did in the situation. Because the little things like that and the small disagreements that happen early on that you end up taking the blame for and apologizing for, and just trying to apologize just to get back on good terms because you're like, okay, wait a minute, this was blown out of proportion. I just want this to be over with. I'm going to apologize and we'll move on. But then even after you apologize, you find yourself being like, wait a minute, they didn't apologize for anything in this situation, and I'm starting to hold a little bit of resentment against this person. And if you're feeling that, that is a pretty good sign that this person is controlling or manipulating you. Sign number 3 is that they always seem to try to be the center of attention, and this is another one of those things that you have to kind of decipher if it's really because they're a controlling, manipulative person or if it's just because that's the way they are. I personally notice that whenever somebody is a really controlling or manipulative person, they're typically the one that's putting other people down in a conversation or especially in a group situation. So not only are they trying to be the center of attention by constantly telling stories, always being the one that has some crazy big thing to talk about, but they're also going to take that time where everybody's listening to them to put you down or find a way to make you sound dumb or like the butt of the joke, or just make it seem like they're above you and almost like they're doing you a favor by hanging out with you and by even mentioning your name in this big giant group. So they don't only want to be the center of attention, but they want to be the center of attention in a way that makes them appear better than everybody else around them. Sign number 4 to look out for is that they are super unpredictable. There is no sense of consistency consistency with these people. They are always going to keep you on your toes because they're just always switching things up. And their goal with this is to make sure that you never have a consistent baseline to compare things to, because if you don't have something to compare to, then they can always just use the excuse that, oh, that's not true, like you're wrong, that's not accurate, you don't actually know what you're talking about, and they're going to flip it back on you. So for example, if somebody was hanging out with you and they're always on time and then they randomly started showing up late, you would be like, whoa, that's weird, you used to always be on time and you're not doing that anymore, so what happened, what changed? But with a controlling or manipulative person, they don't give you that baseline of being like, I used to be on time but now I'm late. They're always going to switch it up. So they might be really, really late one day, and then the next day they're going to be on time, and then one time they might even be early to hanging out with you or picking you up or whatever it is. And so this causes you to not have any real grasp of like, is this person going to be late? Are they going to be on time? What's going on? I literally have no idea because there has never been a consistent thing between them. And by them not giving you any kind of consistency, you don't have a baseline. And when you don't have a baseline or anything to compare it to, that means that they are still in control. They are controlling the entire situation because you don't have any control when you don't have a baseline. Sign number 5 is that they control where you go. And this is more common, I'd say, in controlling partners, but it can also be a thing in friendships as well. And you'll notice this in not only them turning down joint plans where both of you were supposed to go somewhere, and they might just be like, oh, I really don't want to go anymore, or oh, like, please, can we just stay home instead? I really just want to spend time with you. And they're going to give you all of these excuses to stop you guys from having to go out to this thing. Or if you do go out to an event together, they're going to sit there the entire time and just be pouting and moping and be like, can we go home? And they're going to make you guys go home early, and it's going to be a whole thing. And then you're going to have to make up an excuse with all your friends of why they had to go home early, and oh, he just wasn't feeling well, and oh, we have a really early day tomorrow. And you're just creating excuse after excuse for this person. But another way you're going to see this manifest is if you have plans by yourself to go do something away from this person, they're going to suddenly start guilt tripping you and being like, well, like, I wish you would just stay home, or they might even pick a fight with you to put you in such a bad mood that you physically don't have the energy to even go to this thing anymore, and then they win because you stay home. Or they might be so controlling that they are straight up telling you, you can't go to this, I don't want you to go there, I don't want you to hang out with them, and just fully taking control of your life and keeping you locked up. And you might think, oh, well, if somebody ever got to that point, I wouldn't allow it. But it starts with the small things, and it starts with the teeny tiny manipulations to control you. And then if you allow it, you end up getting stuck in a situation where somebody is straight up being like, you are not allowed to do this, and you're just so deep in it that you don't even realize how big of a problem it actually is. Sign number 6 is if they want to be fully in charge of your finances or any other assets. And again, this one's probably most common in partners, but it could also be a parental thing as well. Your partner, for example, might insist that all of the bills are paid on their card and that you just send them money, giving you absolutely no control over what bills are paid, if things are actually being paid, or how much is going on them. You have absolutely no idea of any of it because they're just fully taking control of this. But another small sign that I've noticed when it comes to controlling people is even in friendships. This might be a friend that is always super anal if you owe them any money, or if anybody owes them money, they're like, hey, can you send it? Can you send it? I sent you a Venmo. Can you check it? Can you send me this? Whatever. They're so on top of it. But the second that they owe somebody else money, or maybe you guys are on a trip and oh, we're all supposed to be Venmoing this one person, or we're out to dinner, this person put it on their card, let's all send it to them. This person is constantly changing the subject. They're gonna come up with a weird excuse of like, oh, my Venmo's not working right now, or like, oh, my Uber's not working, I can't call the car. Like, when it comes to them owing other people money, they are constantly coming up with excuses, making things up, and just changing the subject to try to get out of it. And without fail, that is always a really big sign of just in general someone being a red flag as a person. But I've always noticed, even in friendships, when I notice that about somebody else, it comes out that, oh, they're controlling their partner, or oh, they're manipulative, or they're doing this to so-and-so. And it's just such a clear red flag of a person in general. So I highly recommend watching out for that, because when you think about it, it's really one of those things where you're like, what sane human being would do this? And sign number 7 is that they claim to know you better than you know yourself. This is possibly the biggest red flag of them all. And I swear to God, if anybody, I don't care who it is, if anybody ever tells you, I know you better than you know yourself, you need to run. Because what mentally sane human being would say that? Like, that is absolutely crazy to think that you could look at somebody and be like, no, you don't know yourself. I actually know you better than you know yourself, even though I've never actually lived in your brain or in your body. What? I had an ex-friend who used to do this to me, and she would do it to stop me from hanging out with certain people, from dating certain people. And at the time, I genuinely was so in it so deep and and so delusional that I was grateful for it. I was like, oh, she really cares about me. She's trying to protect me, trying to help me, whatever. But now that I look back, I realized that it was actually just because she didn't want me dating or hanging out with anybody that she didn't already have control over. So if it was her friends or people that were in our joint friend group that she also had control over, then those people were okay to hang out with, or those people were okay to date. But anybody else that she didn't have control over, suddenly, oh, I was a bad person if I'm hanging out with them, or I was getting guilt tripped for talking to other people or wanting to hang out with other friends because she just didn't approve of it. And she would come at it under the stance of, well, I just think that you shouldn't be friends with them because I just know you better than you know yourself. And I know that these aren't good people for you. What? And I think that parents do this too. And it might not even be necessarily in a bad intentioned controlling way, but at the end of the day, it still is a very controlling and manipulative tactic to use on somebody, because nobody can actually ever know you better than you know yourself, because they are not in your brain. They have not lived the life that you've lived. And even the closest person to you, even if you are besties with your parents and they have seen you through your entire life, they still do not know you better than you know yourself, because they are not in your brain. They are not actually actively living in every single second of your life. So now that we know all the signs to look for and we've determined if anyone in our life is a controlling person, now we can break down what to do about it and how to heal so that we can make sure that this never happens ever again. So obviously, if you have somebody in your life who is like this, the easiest and the best way to try to go about it is to cut ties without ever addressing the fact that you think they're controlling, you think they're manipulative, or you think that they're a bad person or anything like that. Because if you try to talk to them, no matter how sane you come at the conversation, even if you come at it from a way of trying to genuinely help them, it is not going to work. All they're going to do is flip it on you, they're going to belittle you, and they might even try to convince you that you're the controlling one. I genuinely think when it comes to people like this, the best way to go about it is to pull up every single excuse that you can possibly think of. So whether it's, oh, I really need to focus on school, like think of all the shitty ways you've ever been broken up with and just use that, because the more logical you try to go, the worse it's gonna get in a situation like this. They are going to fight you no matter what, but the less emotionally involved you can be in this conversation, the better. If you're not in a situation where you can cut ties, the best thing to do is to try to stay logical when you're having a conversation with this person. Whatever you do, don't let them have the upper hand by getting you emotional or you getting angry. Just let them live in their delusion. Let them talk all they want. Let them throw all this shit at you. Let them just spew out all of their controlling and manipulative tactics and just listen. Just take it and honestly do your best to not even respond. And try to write it all down if you can, because this gives you tangible evidence of you not being crazy. And along with that, if you can, try to make a plan of action to get out of this situation and to actually get to a place where you can cut ties with this person, because in the long run, you just can't have this kind of energy around you. It is literally going to drain you. So once you're out of it or getting out of it, you can start to actually heal the part of you that, one, allowed this to happen in the first place, and two, the part of you that now has all of these new insecurities and fears because of what this controlling person did to you. So we're gonna break this healing down into 3 parts, because you know me, you know I love a good 3-step system. So step number 1, you have to forgive yourself for allowing this to happen in the first place, which does mean that you have to take some accountability for allowing this to happen in the first place. Even though this person was manipulative, and even though they probably gaslit you and lied to you and just manipulated you in general, you still have to take some accountability for allowing this behavior to exist past the first red flag. And once you've forgiven yourself for it, we have to figure out step 2, which is, why did you allow this behavior to happen? Was it because you're lonely? Was it because you're codependent, insecure, desperate for friends? Only you can actually dig deep enough to get to the root of it and be like, damn, I really was desperate for friendship. And with this, I would go as deep as you possibly can. Really try to figure out, like, why were you desperate? Why did you allow this? Why do you think you were codependent? Really just keep asking yourself why until you get to a point where there is no more why. There's just an answer that you can start to kind of dig into and figure it out on your own pace and your own time. And step number 3, you have to build up self-respect so that you never allow this behavior ever again. And building up respect for yourself is kind of the same as building it up for anybody else. So you don't respect another person until you know that they are who they say they are, that they do what they say they're gonna do. And that's exactly how you're gonna build up respect with yourself. So proof is the biggest respect builder. So you have to build up proof of you respecting yourself in order to build respect for yourself. And the easiest way to do this is by doing small things. So if you tell yourself, I'm gonna go on a walk tomorrow, get up and go on that walk tomorrow. Because as you build up these small things that you're saying you're gonna do them and then you actually do them, it's gonna become easier for you to build up things things like, I'm not going to allow this kind of behavior in my life ever again. But if you were to just wake up one day and be like, I'm not going to allow this behavior, but you don't have any kind of foundation to back it on, then it's never going to work because you don't have an actual foundation of trust that you've built with yourself to actually stand on this promise that you're making. So the second somebody disrespects you or does something that you don't like, you're just going to be like, well, I know I said I didn't want that to happen again, and I said I wasn't going to allow it, but maybe next time I won't allow it for sure. And it's just going to be a constant cycle because you don't actually have any respect for yourself, because you don't trust yourself, because you haven't done anything that you said you're going to do. So if you actually build the trust, then you can actually build your boundaries. And if you actually build your boundaries, then you can actually build a life that is free of manipulative and controlling people. My hope for you is that not only did this confirm any suspicion that you might have that somebody in your life is trying to control you, but more importantly, that it gave you all the facts and all the steps that you need to get yourself out of that situation and into better relationships. In the description, I'm actually going to put a few journal prompts that I think really helped me on this journey and helped me get out of a pattern of accepting really shitty relationships from toxic and controlling people and friends and things like that. But I'm also going to put a link to my app, which has hundreds of journal prompts on it, if that's something that you're really trying to dive into. But that is all that I've got for you today. So until next time, be kind to your mind, to your body, and to others, and happy healing.